And we'll start with talking about your daughter. She was born last July, is that correct?
Yes, on
Um,
July 19th.
Tell me about that experience and your time in the delivery room and being pregnant.
Um, it was actually very easy with her. She was my first, so I didn't really know what to anticipate. The doctors walked me through it. You know, our doctor was really good on doing a rotation at our last few weeks going through. So we would meet all of the doctors in the office just in case she wasn't on call. We had a familiar face for our delivery. But I showed up at about 7 centimeters dilated. And as soon as they checked me, my water broke and she was here. So everything happened really fast. So actually, my fiance did a lot of the work with the nurses in the room, and the doctor walked right in and delivered her. And that was kind of it. So it was all kind of a blur for me with the first. So it went really, really fast. Everything just felt like it was in like super, super hyper speed. But the nurses were amazing. They made sure they were right there with me when my water broke. I was like, oh no, I made a mess, and they're like, no worries, we'll clean it up. Right after, they made sure I had water and ice chips and crackers, and they were there to serve my breakfast because she was born in the morning. And the doctor was, super thorough with their checkup afterwards, and they made sure I had all of my IVs and everything to make sure I didn't get dehydrated or needed a blood transfusion. So I really enjoyed my stay there with my first.
And you said your fiance was able to be in the room with you?
Yes. And right after she was born, all of my family came like instantaneously. They say that they try to prefer like 3 in the room at one time, but we had about like 5 people in there, and they were coming in nonstop all day.
Everybody wanted a chance with the new baby.
Oh yes, it's the first baby in the family in a really long time, so she was quite the popular one.
How exciting. Well, I'm comparing that to the birth of last month in June. How were things different when you found out you were pregnant and then being pregnant during a pandemic? Did you have any fears, concerns?
I definitely had fears of not being able to have any family in the room, just because that's kind of what they put in your head, was that, be prepared for anything to change with, the CDC's guidelines. Right now, you're able to have one birthing partner, but that birthing partner is it for your entire stay there. And so when I heard that, I was under the assumption that once he's in, he can't leave. It's kind of like a lockdown situation.
Mm-hmm.
But once we actually arrived to the hospital, they were really good. So they check your temperature as soon as you walk in, and you can only access I went in like early in the morning at like 2:00 in the morning. So we had to enter through the emergency room. None of the other entrances were open. So when we did come through there, we immediately were asked to put a mask on, and then they checked our temperature. And then following that, we checked in and administration, and we were escorted by a nurse up to the 3rd floor delivery unit. And then from there, Jason was stickered and name tagged, and they color coordinate everything so that they know like what day you access the hospital. And then from there on, every day, if he needed to leave, he would be re-stickered, re-temperature checked, and everything.
Oh, so he could come and go if needed, like if you needed more clothes or whatever, what it needs to be.
Exactly. So that was really unexpected and actually really a nice surprise for us, because we just assumed once you're in, and then you leave when I leave, kind of a thing. But then when we talked to the nurses, they were very, very easygoing with him, and it was actually really nice.
What about family in the waiting room? Were you allowed to have grandma and grandpa there?
No, nobody was allowed in the waiting room. Their waiting rooms were closed off to guests. The whole floor and like all the way downstairs through the exit where you park your car to load the baby in, all of that section was closed off.
So were you only allowed to have your husband in the room with you who was getting checked in and out, or could you have more than one person in there?
I personally could not have more than one.
And when it came, so did you have to take a COVID test, or was it just temperature checks?
I did actually, and that was very unexpected and very difficult for me. I wasn't anticipating that at all. Nobody had warned me about that one. So I thought their check was just a quick and easy temperature check, go through the checklist of all the questions, and that was it. But about 3 hours after I was in the hospital and they had set me up with my epidural, they had come in like a full gear. They had a face shield on, a mask underneath their face shield, and then they had like a type of lab coat over their scrubs, and they had to swab the back of my throat, and that was very difficult, especially when it was unanticipated.
Wow. So your doctor, during your exams and when you went in for ultrasounds, never said you may have to take a COVID test when you deliver?
No, that was not told to me. But then as I was getting closer, I noticed some of my friends who were also due around the same time were going in separately to like a clinic to get tested prior to being in the hospital. So I'm almost wondering if, Harrison came a little bit too soon for them to warn me of that.
Right.
Because she thought I might have had another week to go. So I'm guessing that was what happened.
Interesting. And then what about when the baby was born? Did you immediately get to hold him, or did they put him somewhere special due to COVID? What was that like?
Actually, with my first, she had already gone potty inside me. So when they took her out, they warned me that she probably wasn't going to breathe and they needed to put her on the CPAP machine to clean her out. Mm-hmm. So they actually took her away from me when COVID wasn't going on to make sure she was okay. But when he was born, they used the SOFT method, which is like an acronym for, special time with mommy. So as soon as he was delivered, they delayed his clamping and put him right on top of me, wrapped him in towels, cleared out everything and made sure he was, good to go. And he got to stay with me for about 45 minutes to an hour, just without anything going on. It was really nice.
And what about Dad? Did Dad get to do chest to chest?
Yes, he did. He did. He got to do chest to chest, and he even got to cut the cord too.
Oh, how amazing! Sorry, I'm getting so excited. How amazing! I love stories like this. What would you tell an expecting mother? What should she expect giving birth in the pandemic?
I was like a very high-strung mom, and I wanted to have everything in order. But I think honestly, the best advice I can give is just to go into it open-minded. It's a scary experience, in all, because your body's doing things that you didn't expect it to do, and you're in pain and you're nervous and you're awaiting this arrival and wondering what your baby's going to look like. So I would just take all of that in. The nurses and the doctors are, amazing. They actually treated me with better care, in my opinion, with him, to make sure that I wasn't, overthinking everything and afraid of the germs and what was going on with the rest of the hospital. And, with it being on lockdown, I felt safe that nobody was just coming in and out and could contaminate the whole floor. And it was a good experience. I wouldn't be afraid of what to expect at all. I think the worst part was not being able to share it with my family right after he was there, and FaceTiming and, all the phone calls was different than just having him there to be able to hold him and experience him fresh for the first time. But other than that, the doctors and everything are amazing, and they know what they're doing, and they're very prepared for whatever they have coming for them.
And I forgot to ask you, if we take it back to when you were going for your ultrasounds and just prenatal checkups, was your husband allowed to go to those, or were you seeing the ultrasounds by yourself?
So in the beginning, he was, but right after St. Patrick's Day in March was when they started not allowing. So he was on FaceTime with me every appointment, hearing the heartbeat, hearing the ultrasound. But luckily, I was far enough along that when I found out the gender, he was able to be there at that ultrasound appointment.